Here. All right, well, welcome everyone. We are here with Alex today, and I'm super excited to interview her. So thank you so much for being here.
It's lovely to be part of it.
All right, so to start off with, could you just please tell us a little bit about your journey and what you do?
So first and foremost, I'm a single mum to my 16-year-old twin boys that were born at 25 weeks. We live in Kent in the UK, and I run an online health and fitness company in which I help mums live their best lives through changing their mindset and helping them have a positive lifestyle.
So just out of curiosity, have you ever, or have you always been kind of in the fitness area, or how did you get into that?
No, so I stumbled into the fitness arena. I've worked for a corporate bank for nearly 25 years, and when things got to their worst with one of my children with his autism, I then had to leave work because it was a case that I needed to be home to look after him because school wasn't accepting him anymore. He had to leave the school that he was at. So because of that, I then had to get myself out of that downward spiral that it sent me into. So I found fitness.
Neat. So tell me a little bit more too about like what it was like when your twins were first born, and kind of just, if you don't mind sharing some like emotions around that, and kind of what it's just been like as they've grown up.
So I went into labour at 24 weeks with the boys, and managed to do a whole week of labour. And they eventually came, so Callum came out, and people keep thinking it was like a before and after midnight thing because they are born on separate days. But I had Callum at 25 weeks and 5 days at sort of 11 o'clock lunchtime on the Saturday, and then Thomas came out 17 hours later by emergency C-section, because originally the plan was they was going to keep my second child in until May, when he should have been born, or when they should have been born. So that was the plan. But overnight after Callum was born, I got really sick. So in order to start attending to me, they needed to get Thomas out by an emergency C-section. So yeah, so born at 25 weeks, tiny little children, babies. So one was 778 grams and the other one was 940 grams. So we had 17 weeks of neonatal intensive care, special care baby unit, and I got them home with no oxygen at 41 weeks. So I waited an extra week to bring them home. So I got them home a week after they should have been born.
Wow. Wow, that sounds like it was quite the journey.
It was a roller coaster ride. Their whole life has been a roller coaster ride, to be honest, even from now until where we are now at 16 years old. Yeah, the whole journey's been one roller coaster.
Wow. So kind of tell us a little bit more about like what it was like just trying to manage the twins like when they were infants, and what kind of, was there any extra things that you needed to do with them, or what did that look like?
So all the way through when they were in hospital, that was fine because I managed to be able to stay in hospital with them. So I was literally one side of the hospital and they were across the other side to me. So at any time I could go in and see them and sort of make sure they were okay and spend some time with them. Even in the middle of the night, if I woke up, I'd sort of creep over and spend some time with the boys. Towards the end of their hospital journey, I had one in London where they were born, and I had the other one sort of 2.5 hours away in Kent, and I was still expressing milk at that stage as well. Attempting to express milk for them. So, and I felt guilty as a mum even back then when they were in hospital, because I wanted to see both my boys in one day. I was like, I can't go a day without seeing them. So I would spend like half a day with one of them in London, drive and see the other one, stay overnight at home, and then go back do the one in Kent and then drive to London and see the one in London. So it was a juggling act, even when they were babies. And then when they came home from hospital, it was still a case that we had to go in and out of hospital. There were still operations that they needed because they were so premature.
Wow. So then at what point did you end up getting the diagnosis for them of autism?
So what happened was they both went off to school pretty fine. And I just, because I don't have any other children to compare them to. The only child that was close to me at that stage was my niece, but my niece was that much older and she was a girl and she was a single child. So all my comparisons were like, well, it's because they're boys and it's because they're twins and it's because they're this and because they're that. Not realizing at the time that it probably was autism. I just thought they were naughty children, or they didn't do as they were told, or they were copying each other. And it was only when they went to school that one of the teachers pulled me to one side and they were like, we think something might be up here. Have you noticed that he doesn't give you any eye contact? And I say things to him and it goes completely over his head. And I was like, no, I just thought that was him. So it was them that told me, as opposed to me thinking there's something up with my children.
Yeah. Well, I think that happens a lot, especially when you just get used to their personalities and that's just how you do things at home. And because I feel like we see that a lot of like when kids especially go into like preschool here or, just start school, because you don't have them in the middle of a bunch of other children. And so you just don't necessarily realize it until
and also
like,
at that stage, once they go into school, that's rules, isn't it? Like you have to take your turn and you have to line up, and suddenly those boundaries are put into place. And that's where, looking back, that you can see it, as opposed to when they're at home and they're just in free play and we can go out when we want to. It's not that we have to have playtime at a certain time. Looking back now, I can see all the traits. Even when I look back at photos and I can see their trains all being lined up in a line, I just thought that they were very organized kids. I didn't realize that that was a trait. So the evidence was there. The evidence was staring me in the face, but I didn't have any comparisons. I just thought that that's what my children done. They lined up their little people, and they lined up their trains, and they had to have certain colours organised a different way. I just thought, like, well done, children. Like, you're putting all your blue things together, or you're putting all your red things together. Again, not realising that that is part of an autistic child's mind.
Yeah. That's so true. Well, and I think that just really goes to show you like how much you just always loved them and just, loved like the child that they were. And I just think that's so awesome. So then after that point, like, what did that look like? As far as, did you try to learn more, or did you seek out any other professionals, or?
Yeah, so at that stage, I just needed to know everything. So as soon as they said, we think that, I then put the wheels in motion. So it was a case that I needed to know, have you or haven't you? So I managed to get the diagnosis for him. I also asked school, do you think my other child has it? Because they are twins and they're identical. And at that stage, school was saying, because I was very much led by school at this stage. So the school was saying, no, your other child is copying the behaviour. He wants to be like his twins. So my other child slipped through the net all the time. So I didn't push for a diagnosis for him because they were just adamant that it was just this one child. So we got the diagnosis. I'm trying to think if I cried. Did I cry? I don't know if because I know when I speak to some autistic mums that they say like they were relieved when they got the diagnosis. I'm trying to think what my emotions was at that stage. I don't think I was emotional. I don't think I cried. I just thought, right, now I know what I'm dealing with. And it was, I've always been, once I get the the tools, whatever it is, whatever I'm dealing with my children, once I get the tools, I then go to work. So it's okay. So we've got the diagnosis of autism. What does that look like? What does he need? And so that's when I then became a sponge, and I signed up for every club that was going, every newsletter that I could find. I joined the Kent Autistic Trust, I joined the National Autistic Society, and I just learned anything that was going on at school. I just learned and I absorbed, and I became what he needed. I almost became his voice, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that is so neat. And I think that like we can all learn so much from that, of just how you really took that initiative and started to learn everything that you could. And you obviously just have supported them so much. Like, what other ways would you say that this kind of journey has kind of shaped the way that you think in general?
I think I remember my mum always saying like that you clearly have been blessed with a lot of patience. And I think that as a parent of autistic children, you have to have that in abundance. If you haven't got patience, you need to learn patience very quickly. And the other thing that I've learned pretty quickly was to stay calm in the moment, because what I learned was if they were shouting, or if he was shouting and I shouted, that just raised the game. So it was hard, but I learned that the calmer I stayed, the calmer they became quicker, rather than it being a massive explosion all the time. So I learned that pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Is there
Yeah.
anything, like any strategies that you did, or you just had
Um,
to stop to take a deep breath and keep that in
yeah,
mind, or?
I stopped to take a deep breath, but I remember saying things like, you wouldn't like it if mummy shouted at you. I don't like it when you shout at me. So I'm going to go into the kitchen. When you are calm and you're ready, come and find me and we will talk. So I always was very matter of fact with them. And I always allowed them to be angry. So, because there's always a trigger. An autistic child doesn't just have a meltdown for having a meltdown's sake. There's always a trigger. And what I would do after the meltdown had exploded, after I managed to get the calmness, I would always work out what the trigger was, so that I would then learn for next time, so that I would try to avoid whatever that trigger was, so that we might not get a meltdown like we did before.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of that by chance? Like, just
What
thinking,
what triggered him, or
yeah, like when
yeah?
that situation happened where, maybe he got upset and he,
Okay, so one that springs to mind very quickly is if you go into public toilets and the hand dryer goes on. So what I learned very quickly was I would go in and I would say to whoever was in that public toilet, like, my child has autism, please can you not use the hand dryer while we're here? I'd really appreciate it. Because the minute that noise went on, the explosion happened, the meltdown happened. So I learned pretty quickly that I would go in and I would just ask very politely, please, can we use paper towels, or can you just wait and wash your hands until we're finished, please? The other one was, I don't know if you have it in America, but over in the UK, if you use like special toilets, they have that pull string that someone can come in and rescue you. There's like a red string, and they would refuse to go into those toilets because they were worried that someone was going to pull the string, even though I tried to explain it's only us in here and it's only me that would pull the string for someone to come in and rescue us. So they would just refuse point blank to go into those kind of toilets.
wow, you did a fantastic job about being proactive and thinking that through. That is fantastic. So let's talk a little bit more, if you have any like kind of myths that you think are really around just parenting children with autism, or just a lot of sensory kind of processing kind of needs.
So the biggest one is what I've come across, and the more I speak to autistic mums with children that are girls, is that boys get it. Like, I remember when I first went to, going back to when you said, like, what did you do at the beginning of the diagnosis, and I went to whatever meeting was there, I was there with my pen and ticking off, like, do I do this? And one thing that would always come up is that boys get it more than girls. But I just think that girls are better at hiding autism than boys. They sort of fit into routines a lot easier. So the diagnosis of girls, to me, seem a lot harder than when you sit down and you diagnose a boy getting it. So I think that's a big myth. I think if everyone was diagnosed correctly, I think it would probably be very 50-50. I don't think there are more boys that have got it than girls. So I think that's a common myth. And the other one is bad parenting. Like, they've got it because the parents aren't good at, like, telling them off, and that's where that tantrum meltdown comes into play. And I talk about that a lot on my social media. Is like, there is a massive difference between a tantrum and there's a massive difference between an autistic meltdown. An autistic meltdown, the child don't care who is around. The tantrum is to get attention. And I think that's another big myth, is if people aren't aware of an autistic child, you do get the tuts and the, oh, like, she clearly can't control her children when they are lying on the supermarket floor screaming their head off. It's because in their mind, it's because I've said no to an ice cream, or I'm not allowing them to buy their magazine, where actually it could just be that someone's made a loud bang, or the fire alarm has just gone off, or they've just had a traumatic experience in the toilet because someone's just pressed the hand dryer. And I think that's a big myth, is that it isn't that we are bad parents, it's that our children have autism.
Yeah. Well, and that I completely know what you're talking about when you're in a store too, and like you have, you know, another adult walking by and kind of giving you that look of, you know, of, I guess, not taking care of your child the way that you need to, and how it makes such a huge difference. Like, the more people that kind of understand, and when, you know, either they see if there's anything they can help you out with, or they just have that look, I think, of like, I understand, and like, you know, like, I'm glad that you're there for your child. Yeah, it makes all the difference. For sure. So tell us about some of the top things that you think every parent of a child with autism should really understand and know, like, that you think would help them.
The first one I've touched on already is to just stay as calm as possible and find patience. If you haven't already got patience, just go and find some, go and buy some, because I think the more calm and patient you are with your child, the quicker you are going to get that meltdown to come down. And just check in with them and check that they are okay. I think the minute that you bring yourself up to that level, it just adds sort of fuel to the fire kind of thing. So yeah, stay calm, stay patient. When it comes to authority and teachers and people that have a say over your child and their future, is do not take no for an answer. Like, out of all of my top tips that I share with all of the mums that I talk to, that is the biggest one. Make a nuisance of yourself. Don't take no for an answer. If you try and make a call and they say, yeah, we can help you with that, like, I then phone them tomorrow, because I just think, like, if I don't keep on top of it, I'll go to the bottom of the pile, and my child is important. So just don't take no for an answer. If you know that your child is entitled to something and they go, no, they're not, you just keep pushing and keep pushing until you get everything that they are entitled to. So yeah, don't take no for an answer. To fight your child's corner every single day, because without you, you are their voice, especially for the sort of the non-verbal autistic children. You are their biggest advocate, and you are their voice. So You know your child, you know exactly what they need, and you just have to shout as loud as possible to get your voice heard. And then don't take your child's outburst personally, because I used to all the time. I used to think like, I do everything for you and you're just shouting at me, and then I'll just cry. I would literally cry all the time. And I've learned now that it's because you are the person that is there, and they know that they probably can't shout to the teacher, they probably can't shout to whoever, but they know that you are still going to be there tomorrow, even when they give you that outburst. So you are their common ground, you are the one that's always going to be there. So I've learned now not to take that outburst or that shouting or that punch or that kick or a combination of all things, which I've had many a time. Just don't take it personally, because within 5, 10, 15 minutes, they will calm down. And I always made Callum sort of not apologize, because he couldn't help it, but he would understand, and he would go like, I didn't mean to do that. And I go, yeah, I know you didn't, and it's fine. Like it's fine. And just sort of reassure them.
Yeah. Well, and obviously they're just so much more comfortable with you, you know, more than anyone else too. And so that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
That they know no matter what, that you're, you know, that you're there for them and you love them. And yeah.
And you are always going to be there for them tomorrow. I think that was a big thing, because I remember saying, when I used to get so emotional about it, I remember saying to the teacher of the school that Callum ended up at, which was a superb school. And I remember saying like, why does he shout at me so much? Like, why is he punching me and kicking me and shouting at me? And she said, it's because he knows you are still going to be there tomorrow. So you are his safety net. He knows he can use you as a punch bag, so to speak, because he knows tomorrow you're still going to be here because you love him unconditionally. And I think once she explained that to me, I then didn't take it personally. I knew why he was taking it out on me, because I was going to be there.
So obviously her telling you that really made a big difference in kind of how you saw it too. So what's something that maybe you would like to share with other moms now that that you just think they really need to hear and that would help them?
Yeah, I just think just sort of know and understand your child. Don't take it personally, and just know that over a time span, whatever that is, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 3 hours, it's all going to be calm again. And that would be my biggest thing to say to any mum out there, is just know at some point in time it will be calm again.
Fantastic. Well, and it does. It comes in, you know, and then you learn too how to anticipate it and like be a little more proactive and how to support them and kind of get them through it. And it's a huge learning process, I think, for both the parents and both the child and the parents.
Yeah. And like the other thing that I touched on earlier was allowing them to be angry. So rather than saying like, don't do that, don't like, why are you angry, like why are you screaming and shouting at me? I allowed him to be angry. I allowed him to take his frustration out, because there was clearly a trigger that escalated it into a meltdown. But what I done was, through allowing him to be angry, I then verbalized it for him. So I would tap him, and I would use the colors red, yellow, green. So red was angry. So I would say, okay, I understand that you're angry, like we're red at the moment. Like I would be red. If that just happened to me, I would be red too. And then I'd literally tap and I'd say, okay, so we're red at the moment. And then I'd say, okay, are we ready to move to yellow? Like yellow's a bit calmer. And then I'd tap him through to yellow. And sometimes he'd be like, no, I'm not. And I'd be like, okay, let's go back to red. Red is fine. And I'd eventually take him through just by tapping him. And I would take him through to green. And then I would stay in green with him and then everything could be calm, and I'd be like, okay, are we fine? Do we need to talk about it? Do we want to hug? Do we want to cuddle? Should I come back in 5 minutes? But over time, as he's got older, obviously we don't need to do the colours. Over time, he knows when it's about to happen, and he tends to take himself off into his bedroom and deal with it. You hear it, and then he comes down and says, I'm okay now.
Oh my gosh, you did such an amazing job of one, like helping them to recognize that emotions are real, that like you need to feel those. And then like teaching him that he can, like, as he's ready, be able to, you know, help his body start to calm down a little bit. That was absolutely fantastic.
And I even had like a little felt cushion made of red, amber, or red, yellow, green, so that he could see it, as well as me tapping and verbalize, taking him through it as well. And funny enough, about a week ago, I found the little cushion. I was like, this is weird. Candice has asked me to talk about this, and I find the cushion.
Well, and I'm sure that it's something that your child probably pictures in his head to this day too.
Yes,
you know, that's a tool he'll just always have with him because you taught him how to do that. Like that. Yeah. That's fantastic. All right. So we're going to go into some rapid fire questions too.
Okay.
All right. So number one, what's one thing that parents listening could implement today that would help them?
So that's exactly what I just said. Allow them to be angry, allow them to feel that emotion, because if you don't, they will just bottle it up. And we know ourselves, if we try to suppress when we are feeling anxious or nervous or angry about something, it's almost like the pressure cooker, isn't it? And it's going to explode more. So just allow your child to feel whatever it is that they're feeling until they're out the other side, and then go back and address, like, what was it, so that we can help you next time deal with that situation a bit different, i.e. me going into the toilets beforehand so that that explosion doesn't happen. So allow them to be angry, sort of empathize, empathy, have empathy with them around it, sort of understand that you feel it too, and then bring them out. So that's what I would say that they could help them with.
Oh, fantastic. Well, and I really am hearing you too say that reflection piece is so important too, you know, to like allow them to have those feelings and then like really reflect on those, and just you keep kind of coming back to that. You're always learning and like moving forward.
Because I think in the moment as well, they don't realize what that trigger is, because 1 minute they're fine and the next minute they're like, and they don't recognize it. Mm-hmm. I remember, oh my goodness, so when he was asked to leave school and I had him home educating him, which is why I feel really sad for anyone that's doing that home education thing through what we're going through at the moment, is I had him at home with me, and I remember at one stage I had 2 post-it notes, like, now we're doing maths, then we're doing English, and then we're going to play. And at one stage, I can't even remember what happened, but there was a massive trigger, and he went into the conservatory and he was screaming and shouting and banging the windows, and I videoed him, I recorded him in this like massive meltdown, and he came back in, being back to normal Callum, and sat down all calm. And after the lesson, after we'd gone on to, and then I said, like, I need to just show you, like, you. And he's like, who's that? He like didn't recognize himself. So I think that may be why it was important to me to show and get that reflection, because sometimes they don't realize, because like I say, the trigger happens and the explosion happens, and then they don't actually know what made them, so that they can learn as well. Because for me, for definite, as they've got older, they understand it a lot more. I think as a toddler and as a sort of a 8-year-old, 9-year-old, they don't really understand their emotions, where now my boys are older, they sort of understand their triggers a lot more. They get it a lot more, and they're aware of them a lot more.
Yeah. Well, and I think that speaks to a lot of all the things that you've done all along, you know, as they've grown too.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You got to give yourself a lot of credit, actually. You've been doing a really great job. If you could offer only one piece of advice to a mother, what would it be?
I would say now the number one piece of advice is to take care of yourself, because at the beginning I didn't. At the beginning I really didn't take care of myself. I felt guilty all the time if I took time away from me. That spiraled me into lots of depression, where I was on antidepressants because of it. And yeah, I went into a very dark period because I didn't give myself that self-care. And I'm very much a visualization person now. So what I say to anybody, not just autistic mums, any ladies that I help, is if you don't put on your own oxygen mask first and take a deep breath when you need it, the dominoes effect happens. Because you think as a mum that holding it all together and juggling all the balls in the air is what you need to do as a mum. But actually, if you are not here because you're making yourself sick because you are juggling all the balls, there's going to be no one to catch those balls. So going back to when you get on an aeroplane, the reason they tell you to put that oxygen mask on before attending to your children is for exactly the reason that I'm trying to be the advocate for mums now, is put that oxygen mask on every single day and give yourself some self-love. Whether it be you meditate in the morning, whether it be you go and take a cup of tea in the garden and read your book, whether it be that you do a workout, whatever it is that gives you that, I've got this. And I would say to try and do it in the morning as well, because if you do it in the morning, it just fills you up and recharges you, and it just makes your day that little bit easier. So yeah, self-love. Do not feel guilty taking time away. Like now I do not feel guilty about taking nights away from my children, and I tell them, like, I'm doing this so that it makes me come back a better mum, because I need to go and recharge. You two drain me at times, like, and my battery is 0. I need to go and plug myself back in. So I'm going away for the night. And I'm really fortunate, because as much as I am a single mum, my parents are amazing. So if I ever phone them in tears and I'm like, it's really getting on top of me, my dad will be around in a minute. And I mean, sometimes I have been known recently through this to just go and sit on the drive in my car just to take 5 minutes. And I say, I'm literally on the drive. If you need me, that's where I am, but I just need to recharge. So yeah, self-love is vital. That would be my top tip to anybody.
It is so very true. And I think that there's so many other, especially mothers that can relate to what you said, because I do think that we try to juggle everything, and we kind of put that weight on ourselves. And then when you realize how much of a difference it makes when you actually do like recharge yourself and actually take care of yourself, because then you can actually be the kind of mom that you want to be. Oh my gosh.
You can deal with the day ahead of you big time.
Yeah, completely. It makes all the difference for sure. So I am a huge reader, and I always love to hear from other people if they could recommend a book to any of the listeners today. What would it be?
So I've got 2 recommendations. So my first one would be for all the mums, which is Girl Stop Apologising by Rachel Hollis, because that just puts into perspective what we've just said. Like, you do not need to apologise for taking care of yourself and being you, because before we were all mums, we were us, and we did things for us. So just because we are now mums of children, or mums with children with special needs, that's even more important. So don't apologize for what you need. So that would be my first book. And then my second book, I can't remember who told me about this book, but it was at the time when Callum first got diagnosed, and it's called The Reason I Jump. I cannot pronounce the person who wrote the book, but it was all about the life as an autistic person. So that they would be my 2 recommendations for mums, and then anyone that needs to understand autism that little bit more would be the reason I jump.
Fantastic. I know I can't take a stab at that name either, but
No.
I will make sure to include it in the show notes in case anyone is interested.
I think that would be very useful because I do not want to discredit this person by saying his name wrong.
Oh, and those are fantastic book selections too. I love those. Those are really, really good books too. So if people want to get in touch with you, how are some different ways that they'd be able to get in contact with you?
So I'm on Instagram, which is Alex_chart, nice and simple. And then I'm also on Facebook as well, which is just my name. So I don't actually know the hashtag thing. Like I'm not technical. I think there's a number 5 at the end, but yeah, if you find me on Instagram, that's the easiest way. Alex_chart, and then I can always direct you to Facebook if you need to be on that platform as well.
Perfect. Well, and I can include that in the chart notes as well if you want me to. So
perfect.
That is fantastic. Oh my goodness. I honestly, I think I could talk to you all day about all of this because you have just done such a tremendous job raising your boys. And I'm sure you have so many great nuggets inside of you for sure. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and just sharing with other moms and other parents that are going through similar journeys. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Candice.